had a really good joke. I can't remember. I can never remember jokes. It's kind of my Achilles elbow. Today we're talking about Achilles. And again, it's not just my Achilles, it's whatever the injury is on that Achilles. Usually it falls under the tendinopathy umbrella. We've talked about this in probably, I think, every video that we've done so far. Tendinopathy umbrella breakdown. You have tendinosis, which means we have some sort of injury. Are you pointing?
No, I'm like you can fill that in. It's going to say tendinosis, and then this one's going to be tendon.
Well, itis.
Itis.
Would
There
be
we
the
go.
other. But tendinosis basically means that we're having some sort of irritation of that tissue without inflammation. Tendinitis, the itis, I got the itis, means it's inflammatory. Kind of in between there or somewhere in that timeline or continuum, you can have reactive tendinitis. That means you're having actual degenerative change of the tissue. So you're either just destroying tissue, which is kind of a mitosis, right?
Is that another one?
Yeah. Or you can just have where you're replacing that tissue with something else. So you can have fatty infiltration, you can have dense fibrous tissue. Dear Lord, if we call it an adhesion. Probably not that. But that's usually what it is. And also it is going to come from usually some sort of like capacity issue. What do we mean by that? You've done too much, too soon. You've broken the number one tenet. If you're a runner of maybe you did more than the 10%, because we all know if you go 10.5 or 11% more volume per week, your Achilles explode.
It blows up.
Like it shows up. Tolerance is that same thing, biomechanics, like how you're doing something. That could be jumping, running, tumbling, anything. But also systemic health. So if your tissue quality sucks, guess what? Your Achilles may hurt. If you have autoimmune issues, also if you're taking certain medications, things like Accutane, fluoroquinolones, these things tend to make it harder for collagen to repair itself in normal duress, let alone athletic endeavors. So those are definitely things to be aware of.
Yeah, so some common ways to treat it are the typical ice, calf stretch, like you lean against a wall and you stretch out that calf. I'm good to go. I took care of my Achilles. We can also foam roll the calf. Some other ways through medication, so some NSAIDs, whether they're over the counter or prescribed, topical steroid, or even a prescribed steroid. And then we can change up our shoes, put a lot of cushion in the bottom of that.
It always helps.
Maybe hike up the heel a little bit, or even some prescribed orthotics. So what are some ways that we can treat this at the farm? Well, first we want to desensitize the area. We want to get rid of pain. We can do that through a couple different ways. One way I really like is through manual therapy techniques. The other way is we can look at range of motion. You can improve range of motion through different types of adjustments, different types of rehab exercises. You want to also make sure that you can control that newfound range of motion. Then we may have to offload the athlete. So say you're running a lot of mileage that week, we may have to strip back some of that, maybe strip back some of our training hours as well. So once we've gotten rid of pain, with any tendinopathy, the goal should be to create a very strong and robust tissue. So to build that Achilles up, we're gonna go through and first start with very safe isometric loading. Then we're gonna continue on to probably some eccentrics, creates a very strong Achilles. Then we're gonna finish it up with probably some concentrics, some plyometrics, and really challenge that tissue. We wanna ultimately build its tolerance.
So if we ended with plyometrics to get that tolerant tissue to be a little more healthy, now we need to start working with what we've kind of been working on through rehab: capacity, tolerance, increased biomechanics. Increased biomechanics, that makes no sense. Increased range of motion for improved biomechanics. Come on. So one of the things that we have talked about in a few of these videos is the Windlass Mechanism. You have to bring it back up for the Achilles because the two ends of the windlass are going to be basically great toe extension, moving across the plantar fascia into that Achilles. Again, the windlass, I didn't know this until I looked it up a long time ago. Dr. Tom
In a book.
Michaud.
Sorry.
Could have been an iPad. It's the crank that you're wheeling up, or what do I want to say? It's like a pulley, right, that you bring up the bucket out of a well. Well, we're bringing up energy from the ground through our body back into the ground, and that's called energy return. That happens through the Windlass Mechanism. So energy return is what is huge, especially for a runner, a bounder, gymnast, tumbler. It doesn't matter if you're going off hard ground or a springboard floor. Energy return only is going to happen with adequate range of motion that's controlled with compliant, healthy tissue. And then we have to think about the coaching aspect of this. It's not always about biomechanics. It's sometimes just how you're doing that thing. you can run really well, but then if you attack down hills like a chump, you're gonna run into problems. So sometimes there is a bit of a, if we went through skill acquisition and you get to that phase, then it gets into technique, coaching, specificity. The last thing on this is when we're talking about performance for tissue health, right? We have those systemic issues like autoimmune things, medications out of that space. Sometimes we have to talk about the functional medicine aspect here of, well, if I don't have healthy tissue, how do I actually get that back? Without talking about supplements, a really good thing to do is decrease sugar in your diet, which is largely inflammatory, especially to soft tissue, and also highly pain generating because it's inflammatory, and also increase your hydration. If we want to talk about the world of fascia and how fancy that is, and everyone wants to talk about it, you know, all that stuff, you have to be hydrated to have compliant tissue that's going to move around and allow us to do the things we want to do. Hope you guys learned something. Check out more of our videos. Let us know if you have questions. We'll see you next time.